Kush TV presenting the introduction to the Afrikan Al-Khem-I of Spirituality. We have just witnessed the opening of the spiritual ways by Sister Griot Chinyere, bringing the ancestors into communion with us, completing the circle that is our community, our nation, kings and queens, because we do nothing without remembering and bringing our ancestors into focus to join us, as they say, let the circle be unbroken and let the healing begin. So welcome once again. And as you know, as you well know, if you have studied African spiritual traditions to any significant level, you will know that there is a seriously strong connection between the ancestral energy and the energy of birth. Because we understand that life is a cycle of spirals, and in fact, our born children are our ancestors returned to us. So once we have called on the ancestors now, we are going to go into a presentation that deals with the element of childbirth. Stay tuned, kings and queens. Lock in, lock on very well. And that goes for the brothers as well as the sisters, because in this time of the rise of the divine feminine energy, it is important for us as man to delve into our feminine aspects, and what better way to do so than through a connection with childbirth. And to present this presentation entitled The Alchemy of Childbirth, we have a beautiful, energetic and fantastic sister who is also a doula, who helps us to bring our children into the physical realm, kings and queens. Yes indeed. Please show your love and appreciation for the sister, the goddess, the urban goddess, Sister Mut. Take it away, sis. Blessings.
Give thanks. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone's patience this evening and this afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I want to introduce myself. I am Sister Mut. Why do people call me Sister Mut? People call me Sister Mut because the work that I actually do means that I am not only a mother figure, but also a sister figure. Yeah? So I want to go in, before I start, I do want us to acknowledge our ancestors and the Creator. We must always, at all times, always remember that there always is something greater than ourselves. Yeah? Because we often say we are gods, we are goddesses, we are, children of the Most High, but we forget that we are not the ones that make the plants. We are not the ones that make the sun. We are not the ones that make the water. We are not the ones that make the sky. We are not the ones that make the trees. So always remember our place and recognize that science has its place, but nature also has its place, and the Creator has its place too. Yeah? So I want to go into that recognition, because it's very important that we recognize the ancestors that we have. And one of our great deities of our time is a deity called Taweret. Taweret is a deity such that she's a mother figure. She is a protector. When she was, if you can see the slide, you will see that she was put outside most of the temples in Karnak, where she was a protective force and a protective energy. Why the hippo? The hippo in itself is a fierce protector of its babies. And what we see here is the depiction of the limbs and also the arms, the legs of a lion, but also we see the crocodile's back, we see the pregnant hippo, and we also see the mammary glands, which expresses the female. We also know, what we know about Taweret as well, is that she used to, in her time, reign with a weapon, but also not just a weapon, but also a wand. So when we talk about the spiritual alchemy, she epitomizes and recognizes alchemy. So I want us to recognize and acknowledge Taweret. Now, who am I? Now, I'm a mother of 3. I'm a doula and a free birther. Now, to those who don't know what a free birther is, or a doula for that matter, a doula is a professional birthing partner. So what do? I help families, I prepare families before childbirth, before, during and after childbirth. As a free birther, it means a woman that has chosen to deliver her children without a midwife present. So that is what I've done with 2 of my children. I'm the mother to 3 sons, and so a very big one and 2 small ones. And I train women in fearlessness. Now, I also, out of the work that I've been doing, I've been a doula now since 2003, so we're looking a few years on that, right? So inside of doing that, it meant that the work that I do is broad. And so I've developed principles and instruction and guidance in a way that helps relationships to flourish and build and develop. And so, as a relational evolution coach, I take relationships that are, may not be in the greatest position, and may need reinforcement, and may need substance and connection and depth. And I look at the relationships they're in a holistic and bespoke manner. And I look at the relationships they're in, and I give them the right, if you like, holistic guidance and support that is needed. And the conversations often transcend into lots of different areas, including spiritual intimacy and spiritual sex, but also it goes into things like natural contraception, and selection and compatibility. And so I look at all those different areas, and that's an area that I am involved in and we are developing as Urban Goddess. So I'm also a creative artist, but you'll no doubt see some of that towards the end of the presentation. So I won't spoil it for you. So let me tell you a little bit about my personal alchemy. So inside of my personal alchemy, I found myself as a young woman, very just out there doing my thing, I was in performing arts at the time. And then came into a space where I came into my consciousness. And but what was really interesting is that when I was pregnant with my first child, who's 20 now, and I was absolutely petrified. To the point of could not watch a video, would be crying, only have to look at a video. Those times it was VHS and DVDs, not DVDs, right? So it was VHS, go to the library, go get a video, look at the thing, and at the time I could not do it. Now actually what I do say to women now is, unless it's a positive birth, don't watch it, because it feeds the mind, So it's very important for us as women, we'll get to that, but it's very important for us, our minds to be fed and handled with care. And so with my first child, inside of that experience, though it was emotionally on something that I was struggling with, or something that I had no idea, I was the first of my friends to be a mum, so there was no real, setup for me to understand childbirth, really. And often when you speak to people about childbirth, what do you get? You get negative stories, this story, that story, this story, that story, all sorts of negative stories that you have to deal with and then take into your subconscious, which is something that I'm totally against that kind of sharing. In fact, people do need to keep that to themselves if it's a negative experience. So anyway, I then took on my own personal alchemy. I took on my diet, but I also took on my spiritual practices and started to get into meditations, started to connect with the baby in a particular way, which is what I teach now. And inside of that, had myself a completely pain-free birth with my first child. And so, though the midwife was there, and what was interesting about that experience, inside of the midwife being there, she said something really interesting when I was holding my partner's hand. She said, don't hold his hand, don't hold her hand, she might break it. But what she did in that moment, she broke the bond, which is actually something that I'm very aware of as a doula, like that. It's all about keeping the unit together and keeping them inseparable. So I focus on that inside of the work that I do. So fast forward, so I had a beautiful pain-free birth. In fact, when I called the midwife, I was already 8 centimeters, and she said, "Oh, you can come." When she came, in fact, I was 8 centimeters. She said, "Oh, we'll push now." Now, if I'd actually listened to her at 8 centimeters, potentially I could have hemorrhaged. So, thought it's all about the work that you do and the preparation that you do in preparation for birth. So, fast forward, second child. Now, this is an interesting dynamic because this goes back to the conversation about me being a relational evolution coach and the relationship dynamics that happen there. So in that side of that relationship, it was not an easy relationship. In fact, it was quite toxic. And so it took a lot for me to have to create a birth situation where I knew that I personally had already trained in this area for some time, had the birth experiences that I'd had, and also I was very clear that I wanted to have my child at home and with no midwife present, and I trusted myself and I knew my body to do that. Yeah. Now I'm not saying, disclaimer, I am not saying that everybody needs to go out and do their delivery themselves. That's not what I'm saying. I train women in business. I train myself in business. I've been doing this a long time. So that's why I can say that the way that I do. However, inside of that situation, given that the situation that I was in was a toxic situation, so therefore, how was I going to have the birth that I wanted? So I had what I would call a village birth. Now, that birth consisted of about 15 people. Men drumming in the kitchen, women chanting, singing, making me porridge, even down to a young lady who was like a scribe. She was in her adolescence at the time, and this was an opportunity for her also to scribe down an experience of childbirth, for her going into her maturity. It was a tough pregnancy and a challenging birth, and I knew at that point in training my team at the time, like an orchestra, I recognized, okay, I'm going to need drumming. You are my pain relief, and therefore you being my pain relief means that I'm going to need you and you being able to do X, Y, and Z. And I delivered him, and he was delivered into his father's hands. Last birth, which you might see in this image here, this is quite an extraordinary birth, actually, because by this time I've had one birth into the midwife's hands, the second birth into his father's hands, and I thought, I've never been the first hands on my own child. And so, this picture here, you can see, this picture was laminated, and I looked at this picture every day, and I focused on this picture every single day, so I am going to deliver my baby in my own hands. And so, if you see this picture, you can see it clearly at all. This picture here is my little one after I delivered in my own hands after 3 hours. So, and that experience, I was by myself. The father wasn't around, blah, 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 blah. And by this time, I feel very confident, very proficient in this work. So, as far as I'm concerned, I've got this. So that's kind of where I stood inside of that. So these are some achievements, yes, but I got to see that in itself is alchemy in itself. It really takes something, the mind in its own form. So, now, I want to be able to go into the section around women know your alchemy. This is why I say this, is because there's 2 types of women in childbirth. And you'll have 2 types, the warrior or the child. And what happens is when a woman is going into labour in particular, pregnancy sometimes, but certainly in labour, the being she is shows up at the birth. Yeah? And I always say to a couple, what's going on in the relationship will show up at the birth. Also, what's going on in here will show up here. So if you find, I'm going to just say this, and it's going to be hard for some women to hear, but a lot of these corporate women, yes, a lot of the corporate women, if you look at the statistics, you'll find a lot of those corporate women end up with cesarean sections. Why? Because of control, the need to control the situation. Also, it has to do with not being able, there's a time and a place to be able to control what you do and when you do it. And great, but your child is and your body is not a business, and it's not a company. And that means it's really important for you to recognize at what point in time that you need to let go and let God and go back to the Creator, right? So, The important thing is that women need to understand, when women have got that sense of themselves, as in my experience, and I think it's important, I'm sharing this with you today, because I think this is very important, that, you can also take back your own alchemy. You can be in a situation that either in your pregnancy or in your birth, no matter what the circumstances presented you to yourself, clearly it can be done, but the circumstances are irrelevant. What you think is the most important thing, and how you think and what you put into your mind is the most important thing. So, I think it's very important for women to understand that there is often a childlike state that can come out. I don't say it often, but if you are not working on yourself, you will find that that childlike state will come out there. When you are working on yourself, you'll find that warrior comes out at your birth, and you are transforming. There's a metamorphosis going on with you. I would go as far as to say with each child there's a metamorphosis. So recognizing that for not just yourself, but also for the partner involved as well. You're both going through a transition. So I think that is very important to know. A lot of women don't tune into their pregnancies. They have these pregnancies where they're like, okay, you know what, I'm just pregnant and it's cool, but they're not tuning in. They're not connected to their baby. They're not realizing the power in which connecting the baby hearing 60-70% of what's going on, your voice, and 30-40% of his voice, if the father is around, is very influential on the baby. That means that what you're saying and what you're feeling and what you're thinking is like food. And so that food goes into your child and nurtures that child's emotional and physical well-being. And that is very important for us as women to recognize, being able to tune into your child, regardless of the circumstances. You can have a 5-minute meditation, you can sit down with the child, talk to the child, have a conversation with the child, listen to music with the child, but your abuse and a frequency that is sustainable and emotionally uplifting. I think that's very important, because your child, how your child feels, how you feel is how your child feels. And if you're a woman who holds a lot of information in, and she's less expressed and much more internalize your emotions, journaling is very, very good for that kind of thing. And I'll give you an example of how journaling worked for me. So I had my second son, and with my second son, where I was going through a difficult time, I had a full start with the birth. So I said, okay, you know what, I know this work, I know what to do. I started to journal, and I journaled from about 10 o'clock at night to 3 in the morning. And when I finished, literally about 10 minutes later, I went into labour. So what that told me is that I needed to brain dump, get it out of me, because it's not going to go, if I don't take it out, where's it going to go? Yeah? So it's very, very important for women to recognise, it must come out. Yeah? And so again, understanding as a woman, you must understand your position. Men hold their position and women hold their position. In the work that I teach, I recognise that women hold the vision, yeah, and that men execute the plan. What we have to understand is we're in a different time now, where women are like the spiritual leaders and men are the physical leaders. And what the workability of that, and understanding our position, understanding that we are in a place where we need to work together now, yeah? The times are changing, the tide is changing, and we need to think about how well we work together. So tuning in for women is very, very important. Recognizing your lifestyle and what's in it, clearing your lifestyle of particular things that you don't need for the sake of your children. If not for yourself, then do it for your children. So, man, know your alchemy. So, I'm going to start here, and this is a beautiful dedication, and I want to acknowledge where the dedication came from, and it's scribed by Haru Hotet Tar, the Coptic Church, and I would like to, he writes a beautiful dedication. I think this really states where men are gravitating to. So it says, this parchment is dedicated to all women of humanity, most especially the strongest of all females on this planet, the Nubian Mennonite female called human. Our grandmothers who impart on us their vision, mothers who rear us, wives who rear our children, sisters who grow up alongside of us, and daughters who give us hope for the future survival of our Nubian Mennonite genes. All of you have endured so much at the hands of us as males. We have unknowingly abused your bodies, sexually assisted others in dragging you, forced you to abort your children due to our weaknesses and fear of responsibility as men, stressed you out in our youth by being ever the hard-headed sons, taken the pain you endured during birth for granted, lied to you and led you into countless wars in our quest to dominate the earth, never taking into account how many broken hearts we would make with each life we take. The wrongs we have committed against you are countless, and yet you remain ever the nurturer, providing that you are, in fact, a daughter of the greatest mother, which we all have, Mother Earth. And for all of your greatness, we are ever thankful that you have not given up on us, and more importantly, yourselves, for without you, none of us would be. So I want to be able to share that, because I think that really, creates an important message for men too. Again, going back to the conversation about warrior or child. Now, what happens often in the state of learning about a new child coming, it is a space for men to have to really look at themselves. There's nowhere to hide inside of it, and many men do hide, of course, right? And so we have to look at inside ourselves, okay, what's going on inside of us? Often, the males have not had that structure inside of themselves as well, so they haven't seen particular things with their own mothers, so they haven't seen particular things or nurturing their fathers, nurturing their mother in a particular way, so they don't have any mental or any visual or any examples really to go on except for friends and what have you. And so friends, male friends, speaking to other male friends, those things don't necessarily assist you. What assists you is what you believe responsibility is. What do you see responsibility is? Where are you? Where does it lie with you? And like everyone, I can tell you, most women are on the fence when they suddenly decide that, say, actually get pregnant. Even if they planned it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's really real. And men have the same experience, but it's not dealt with necessarily in the same way. And so it's really important for men to be able to not only share that in a healthy setting with a healthy set of men, but it's also important for men to be in a position where they can take it on. Because it's like this, I know it's a tough thing to say, but your womanhood and your manhood certainly, definitely comes to the surface as a parent, yeah? There are no two ways about it. You will find that you can go through your life and never have somebody who depends upon your survival like a child does. That's when you become a man. That's when you become a woman. And that in itself is difficult for people to say, to hear. And I get it. Some people are really challenged by what I say. I said it. Yeah? So I'm not taking that back. But what I will say is it's that planning. It's about understanding that you are in a position where, okay, I am responsible for somebody else's survival. Therefore, what choices am I going to make at this stage? So, are you a man, are you a child is very important. And a lot of men come into the situation, as you see here, when I talk about tuning to the pregnancy, you see in this situation here, let's use this now. When you see this situation here, this is a woman stressed out with an argument, ensuing here. Now, what a man's role is in pregnancy is for him to protect her mind, yeah? What he puts in emotionally here goes here. What goes here happens here. So it's the whole thing is linked. And very, very important for men to know what to do and how to deal with it. And not every man has been equipped with that knowledge. And so as a doula, my role is to support a man and to empower him and to take him from a place of maybe not knowing from like 0 to hero. And so that's very, very important for a man to experience that. What we want from our men is we want this. Yeah? We want a woman to feel protected. That child, if that, let's say, this may just be a shot, right? And they may not even be a couple. But let's say they are a couple. I can tell you, just by looking at that, this birth is going to be easier than this birth. Yeah? So we cannot assume that everything that we need to do is just right here. Okay, when the baby comes, we'll deal with it. That's fine. What's happening here is developing your baby. Stress in pregnancy gives the child birth defects. Stress in pregnancy makes the child underweight. Stress in pregnancy causes many different problems and many different ailments that can be alleviated if you are pouring the right things into your mind. So, I want to move on to how to use your alchemy right now. So, here we are. For you, as women, this is an important thing, yeah? This is really an important thing for you to know as a woman. What's important is that you are using, you can use a birth ball, exercise ball. This is about 65 centimeters. I want to be able to show you how to use alchemy right now. Now, one of the things we see in this picture here is that we see the birthing chamber, we see the birthing stool, we see the squatting position. We need to understand that in a squatting position gives you 30%, 33% extra room for the baby to come out. Using gravity is key. Yeah. Now, a lot of women now, in their jobs, they sit like this, at a desk in this position, and their knees are higher than their pelvis. Having your knees higher than your pelvis means that the baby is falling into a bucket. That means often that the baby is now turning from back here, which is optimal fetal positioning, to a space where the baby's back is to the back. Now, when you go to your antenatals, if anybody hears this now, when you go to your antenatals from now on, always ask what position your baby is in. Is your baby back to the front, or is your baby back to back? Often you're not told because it's so common in sitting like this. However, optimal fetal positioning means that your legs are lower than your pelvis in this position. You're leaning forward, you're swinging your baby's back round to the front, and you're in a position where whether you're watching something, go push TV on online, and you've got nothing else doing, and you can be able to sit here and bring your baby forward. Another position as well is to be able to remember, we are not in rice fields now, right? So those positions actually cause better outcomes for birth. So now we're in a position where, again, you could be watching something or doing something, and you are now leaning over, using your weight, bringing the baby from the back into the front, and you are changing the game by doing that. And if you take something like that, it's as simple as that, and start doing that for the last 3 months, that is very much likely to turn your baby into the right position, and you'll be less likely to have a posterior presentation or a presentation that means that you'll need either forceps or cesarean delivery or ventouse. So that is how alchemy is used right now. So I want to make you understand the importance of this. Why I brought this to your attention is not just the birth, but also the importance of relationship. Because without the relationship, nothing gets done. And so here we are. It's very important to relate and engage. So I'm going to do a piece for you and understand that Black love in itself and the relationships that we are developing in this time is our alchemy. Black love is from up above. Black love is black love in the face of no agreement. That's our love. black love in the face of no agreement. That's our love. Black love is something they will never fathom nor understand. Black love, generation after generation, no separation. Black love creates, creates peace. Black love heals. Black love, our love. Black love creates the supreme. Black love gets into your being. Black love is the opener. Black love raises your consciousness. Black love taps into one's infinity. Black love is our creativity. Black love is unshakable. Black love has its own unique instrument. That's our love. Black love is a frequency. Black love, only those who know will hear it. Oh, that's our love. Black love turns you inside out. Black love, there's no room for doubt. Black love has power. Black love blossoms like a flower. Black love strengthens and softens moment by moment. That's our love. Black love supports your growth. Black love is an ancestral oath. Black love creates divine selection. Black love creates divine protection. Black love holds humility. Black love strengthens community. Black love always has a vision. Black love is our only mission. Black love never invades your life. Black love helps you to grow inside. Black love comes when the teacher is prepared to be the student of love. Black love, justice. Black love, justice. Black love, justice. Black love, justice. Black love. Thank you. And I want to say thank you to Goddess TV. Thank you so much for having me. And also, I want to say thank you to God Given Talent, who sponsored my talk today. You can contact me if you want to get hold of me. I'm at urbangoddessevolution.org and Insta Urban Goddess Evolution. So thank you so much for your time in this presentation, and I hope you learned loads from it, and I hope to see you again. Give thanks.